Hunter Kershaw, and this is my TED Talk about the leadership and influence of Miss Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou is one of the most influential people that I have studied. She is strong, courageous, creative, and she has an immense depth. When I went into my junior year of college, I took an African American Studies class that originally sparked my interest in Miss Angelou. One of my favorite interviews of Miss Angelou is the one on CBS, which was during a Q&A where a young girl had addressed her as Maya. And she started off and was like, well, first, I'm to be addressed as Miss Angelou. And I have a quote of her, of what she had said after, and she said, "I have lived so long and tried so hard that a woman like you, or any other you have no license to come up to me and call me by my first name. That's first. Also because at the same time, I am your mother, I'm your auntie, I'm your teacher, I'm your professor, you see." And that just shows that she's really someone that I personally respect a great deal. And I feel that you should always respect your elders, especially the ones that have paved the way for you. One thing that really hit home for me was in a special on 60 Minutes about how Miss Angelou had influenced many people in, the music and the movie industry and just like progressives and, the African American society. But something that had really stayed with me was her dislike for the N-word. And, me being a black female and, just kind of being young and a little naive, I had just always thought that it was okay for me to say it because I am black. But just the connotation of the word just isn't something that I want to have instilled in my vocabulary. So as soon as I heard that, I stopped saying it because, she's somebody that I greatly respect. And if, she sees fault in that word and, how it plays in our society today, I feel that it's not really necessary for it to be in my vocabulary to begin with. But I'll tell you a little history and, kind of about Maya Angelou as a person. And she's played such a predominant role in reshaping society's perspectives of racial relations. She didn't limit herself to being just a pivotal player for the change in the African American community, and she just knew that she wanted a greater change that rippled the entire tide of America. She was fearless in her efforts, and she did just what she sought out to do. Her authenticity and wisdom made her an enduring leader. She worked hard and she influenced people to be more kind and compassionate towards each other. Not only was she an exceptional poet, she was an author, a historian, a dancer, a screenwriter, and a civil rights and black activist. People say that actions speak louder than words, but her poetry just makes, someone think twice about that statement. Contrary to popular belief, leadership is something that can be taught, and I feel like leadership qualities are mostly molded between learning and your experiences, and whether the experiences are categorized as good or bad doesn't really, do anything different because they all shape, who you are in somebody's character. Maya Angelou had, a few traumatic events in her life, one being when she was raped as a child, which I learned about in an interview that was published in 2017. But when she was 7.5, Maya was raped by someone that she described as, somebody that she knew very well and that her family knew very well. And she was even left hospitalized after the rape. And, later, I think the rapist only served 1 day, and then he was later found kicked to death not long after he had been released. And Maya had just always felt that she was responsible for that death because she told authorities her rapist's name, And so after that, she chose not to speak for 5 years. But, you know, not speaking for 5 years, that makes you feel like somebody could be, in a dark place. But rather than her, letting that poison her existence, she found light at the end of the tunnel. And she viewed, like, her tragic experience more as a lesson, because good can always come out of bad. And for those 5 years, she didn't speak much, but not only did she not speak much, she didn't speak at all. And she read every book at the black school library and the white school library because, everything was segregated back then. She memorized Shakespeare whole plays, like up to 50 sonnets. She had memorized all of Edgar Allan Poe's poems. So by the time that she decided to speak, she clearly had a lot to say. She learned the lessons of learning by drawing from human thought, as well as human triumphs and disappointments. And she was able to cope with her experience by educating herself to be more open-minded. This is pivotal when speaking of Maya Angelou and her leadership abilities, because those 5 years, from age 7.5 to about 12 years old, shaped who she is today. So, I mean, with all of the stuff that she has been through, she's felt pain and struggle and sacrifice, and because she has a knack for her words, she has used her gift to educate others. She is remembered by being prideful for who she was, and decided to use her talents to help relay the message of the struggle of African Americans living in a racist-filled society. Though things have, improved, it probably wouldn't have improved as much if we didn't have people like Maya Angelou. During her lifelong conquest of raising awareness and uplifting the black community from their civil unrest, she wrote the poem Still I Rise, which was about determination to rise out of society, as well as sending a message to others who live above the society in which they grow up. In relation to that poem, she calls slavery history's shame and says that she won't be held down from the past that was rooted in so much pain. The poem ends with her laying out and leaving behind the effects of slavery to the best of her ability, but at the same time she acknowledges that slavery and oppression is real and that it does exist. She eloquently found a way to accurately portray the many struggles of African Americans that we face in today's society. Some other really big aspects of her is that she worked closely with Dr. Martin Luther King, especially in the 1960s. And when Dr. King was assassinated, though, that caused a world of pain to everybody, especially the black community, she once again saw the light. And I have another quote by her that she had wrote that you are the sum total of everything that you have ever seen, heard, ate, smelled, been told, forgot. It's all three. Everything influences each of us, and because of that, I try to make sure that my experiences are positive. Even though there was so much devastation caused by Dr. King and his death, it inspired her to dive deeper into her writing to promote civil rights even further. Some of the greatest leadership qualities that Maya Angelou embodied were courage and exclusiveness, and just her ability to persuade people to take action for the betterment of themselves and in others. She ignited a fire in people to stand up and fight for what they believe in, just as she did her entire life. She had a unique ability to be mentally tough and withstand, some extreme wraths of hate and evil, but could wait out those things long enough to, see the clouds separate and make way for sunlight. She acted as a figure of hope, and she reminds each and one of us that, a lesson that she was really big on were that people forget what you said and they forget what you did, but they will never forget how you make them feel internally. There's a lot of comfort in her words and in her heart with her entire voice, and she's just a special figure that took leadership extremely serious. She believed in leadership, and she was pure, and she stood by her principles no matter what, which are all very significant to me, especially being a young black woman. She's somebody that I can extremely look up to and appreciate everything that she's done and how she's paved the way for, you know, people like me to have the life that I do have. And that's pretty much all that I have. But on a side note, that has nothing to do with this. Your TED Talk, I thought it was beautiful. And, you know, while doing this TED Talk, like, of course, I'm not in a crowd and, you know, there's nobody, you know, listening to me other than probably you when you listen to this. But, you know, being at Lourdes, I haven't really had any black professors other than you, so your class was very significant to me and I appreciated it, and I appreciate you, so thank you.